You are listening to Anna Letitia Cook at Women Up Radio.
Good morning and welcome to Women Up Radio. Today's guest is Pat Duckworth. Pat is a multi-award winner menopause, workplace menopause expert, international speaker and trainer, and #1 bestselling author. So welcome back to the show, Pat.
It's great to be back, Anna. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and you're looking excellent. So I think the last time that you were on the show, it must be over 3 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
God,
and here I am still talking about menopause.
That's good. I know last time, we were talking about empowering older women entrepreneurs and mind-body techniques to support wellness, and again, particularly around menopause. So have there been any new developments on living through the menopause over the last few years?
Well, I think in the last 18 months, we've seen so much more awareness of menopause, partly due to the Davina McCall documentary on TV. And that kind of surprised me because there've been celebrity documentaries about menopause before, but this one just really seemed to stir things up. And I'm not sure if that's not because there's the next generation of women coming through who are starting to go, well, what's going on? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
So I think we've seen more apps being developed. And again, I think it's because this generation of women have grown up using apps for various things. So we're definitely seeing more apps being developed for women to manage their health. They've got used to using them to sort of manage menstrual periods, to manage fertility, and now they're coming into this menopause area. I think in terms of treatments, again, a bit more awareness that the brain has got a lot to do with this.
Yes.
And our attitudes, how we manage our stress, because stress plays an important part in aggravating our symptoms. I could talk about that for the rest of the time we're together, but I'm not going to. Let's just say you really need to manage your stress.
Yeah.
And there is really interestingly research now into how the brain is affected at menopause. Yeah. And women who've experienced brain fog, poor memory, all of the things that go with menopause will be surprised there hasn't been this research in the past, but really interesting to look at why women's brains are affected by the change in our hormones and what that means for us in the long run as well, and whether hormone replacement therapy can help with that.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Particularly, I mean, the brain fog and the memory issues. Is that something, I mean, I know I'm going straight away off at a tangent, but never mind. Is it
we
something...
knew we would.
Well, exactly. Right. Does that last after menopause, or is that something that's really during menopause?
So I think this is where the research comes in, because a lot of women will recognise the brain fog thing. When I was starting to go through menopause, I was doing a very responsible job in a big government department, and I felt like I needed to keep changing my glasses. It was like the world had gone out of focus.
Yeah.
And the effects on memory, trying to remember words, can be really important when you're in the workplace. Yeah. So some of this is transitory. It is as we adjust to the changing levels of the hormones. The research that's being done, and there's a doctor called Dr. Lisa Mosconi in America who's done a really interesting TED talk on this. They're actually looking at brain structure, because estrogen affects lots of different processes in the body, and some of those processes are starting in the brain, what's happening, and there are changes in the brain structure as well. So some of it is long term. You wouldn't experience it in the same way, but it means we really do have to look after our brain health.
Yeah, because I find personally, my memory, I've got a very good memory, but I'm having sort of lapses. I mean, they come back later, but, I'm still getting this. And I'm now 62, and my menopause was, well, I don't really know what it was, because I had a hysterectomy in my 40s. Right. So I still had my ovaries, but I didn't have any sort of specific sign of menopause. And I didn't try to kill husband or, anyone at the time. So I think that's a plus. But
that's good. Well done.
but I've definitely had, periods of what you say, but I couldn't really stay on top of everything all the time. Sometimes, it's fine, but there were so many lapses. But anyway, I will try and get back to the point.
Right. Because some of that is caused by some of the other symptoms, like poor sleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, how I started around stress as well. When you're stressed out, you can't think straight. When you're not sleeping properly, you can't think straight.
Yeah.
So it's complicated.
Yeah. So I was on a really, bad one. No sleep, too much stress, and menopause. Wonderful. But I know you've done really an incredible amount of work raising awareness on menopause, and particularly about supporting employees at menopause in the workplace. So what are some workplaces doing to help with this? Because it's quite a new idea, really. And it's something I think people don't talk about because it's still a taboo subject. So how have you managed to bring the awareness, get it out into the open, and get workplaces actually doing something positive?
Do you know, I gave my first talk on menopause in the workplace in 2015. So
2015?
Yes.
Good God. Okay.
Yes. I gave a talk to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, and I was then asked to go to a local office and talk about it. And I went to the Office of National Statistics as well. They wanted to know more. Absolutely. So it's not quite as new as you might think it is. It's just it has gained a serious amount of momentum.
Yeah.
So some work that I've done, you might be surprised, is with Cheshire Fire Service.
Really?
Yes. I've actually stood in a fire station in front of, firefighters and their back office staff, because when you think about it, there are female firefighters, but there's a lot of back office staff as well who are women. And this doesn't just affect women.
Yeah.
The women affect the men.
Exactly.
Women have partners and mothers and sisters, and all of this means that if you're supporting women at menopause and you're supporting the men, they can become really good allies of the women. So a lot of this starts with raising awareness. As you say, there is still a bit of a taboo, and the best organisations are raising awareness from the top.
Yep.
So at Cheshire Fire Service, the Chief Fire Officer came to the event wearing a T-shirt that said, "Ask me about menopause."
Really?
Yes.
Oh, good
love
for
that
him.
man.
Yeah.
So he was totally signalling to all these guys in their uniforms, this is something we talk about. This is important.
Yep.
And that's where it really works, is where it comes from the top like that. And then it becomes less of a taboo.
Yeah.
And so for them, it's around, well, let's raise awareness and educate all of our staff about it. And then what do we need to do for the women specifically? So for the firefighters, they're doing amazing things like looking at their uniforms, because firefighters' uniforms were designed for men and women wear them.
Yeah.
And sometimes those trousers are tight at the waist, aren't very comfortable, and perhaps you need two sets of trousers, one for when you're a little bit more bloated than you are at other stages. You might need extra pairs of trousers because you can't predict when your periods are coming or your periods get heavier. Just being able to say that out loud.
Yeah.
This is a problem we women have. Get over it. We might need more than one pair of trousers. Carrying additional sanitary towels in fire equipment, in those big fire engines, so that if they're out for a long time, the women aren't thinking, any minute now I'm going to be in my own sort of trouble. And then for their staff, their back office staff, what do they need to support them? Is it around flexible working hours? Is it around access to toilets? What is it that they need? So it's looking at everybody and working out what is the support that those people need. And that starts with asking them.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And does this seem to be, well, the other countries that I work with, I've never actually heard other countries talking about this. And I work with quite a lot of HR directors, and they've mentioned all sorts of, issues in the workplace. but again, they haven't mentioned anything about this. So it seems that the UK is more developed about this, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're right, and it's partly to do with the Equality Act 2010.
Yeah.
Because menopause has been cited in employment tribunal as a reason why a woman wasn't able to do her job well.
Really?
Yes, and under the Equality Act 2010, it has actually been decided that in a couple of particular cases, the woman was actually experiencing a disability under the Act.
Really? That's
So
very
that's why,
progressive. Yeah.
yes, that's why employers have to take it seriously, because although it's not a protected characteristic under the Act, although it may become one because MPs are talking about this, it's actually, if you're experiencing intense and frequent symptoms taking medication, it could actually be a disability that an employer has to take account of. So I think that is one of the reasons why the UK takes it more seriously.
Yeah.
Australia have been doing some work around it, and there was a really lovely speech by a woman who's one of their chief scientists talking about how they should take this subject seriously in the science, technology, engineering field, because women are leaving the field as they get older, when they're knowledgeable, when they have so much to give, so much experience, whereas if they were supported through menopause, they could do so much better. And now America is starting to get interested. Forbes have done some articles on it. Reuters have done articles. Bloomberg's have done articles about it. And I'm actually being invited to speak in sessions in America. So
I
think we're starting to see that acknowledgement.
Yep. So how, because, I mean, coming back to companies, what can they do? Because I'm sure even if the HR department or the big bosses wanted to do something, an awful lot of the employees are going to have the feeling, oh, I'm not sure about talking about this. I don't know. I don't want to admit. For the women thinking, yeah, okay, I'm going through the menopause, but I don't want to admit I've got a problem in case it has a negative impact on promotion or bonus, or gives somebody an excuse and gives them ammunition. So how can a company start to do something, and how can they really signal that it's okay to talk about it? Because that must be the most important first step, but also the most difficult first step.
And that's a really important issue. You know, I'm so old, Anna, that when I started work, women didn't have equal pay.
Yep.
When I started work, I automatically earned 10% less than the men I was working alongside.
Yep.
When I started work, there wasn't maternity leave.
Really?
Oh, yes.
God. Right.
I know, that's how old I am. The women
I don't think you're much older than me, actually, but anyway.
They didn't have a right to maternity leave. And when these things started to be talked about, women were like, don't talk about equal pay. We might not get jobs if we're asking for equal pay. Don't ask for maternity leave, because we might not get jobs if we need maternity leave. So at the start, there's always this fear that asking for something that seems perfectly normal is somehow going to prejudice against us.
Yes.
So we do have to face up to this, and it is down to organisations to start the conversation. And this is Menopause Awareness Month. We're in October. This is a chance for organisations to do something on October the 18th, which is Menopause Awareness Day, to just signal, we're talking about this. If you want to know about it, let's talk about this as an organisation. I know one University of York, they decided to do a project around this. They hadn't done anything. And the woman who was leading it, she sent out a survey. And now this is a really good place to start. Do you feel comfortable talking about menopause? Could you talk, if you're a line manager, could you talk to a member of staff about it? Do you understand it? Would you like some training? If we ran training, would you attend? In 24 hours, she had 200 responses.
Really?
So sometimes you're really opening it up. Organisations could think, well, we haven't got much demand for this. We don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
You open the conversation and people are like, oh, thank heavens.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
So it's just sending a survey out to find out whether the people in your organisation do want some training, do want to understand it more, do want some support. It's a great place to start. And being a Menopause Awareness Month or any other like national day, like Mental Health Day, or Stress Awareness Day, or whatever, if you can do something on that day, you are sending that message out to your organisation that this is okay for us to talk about.
I think that's brilliant. That must make such a difference, because if you get a question, you can actually answer, whereas bringing it up cold, so to speak, is a bit more difficult. And so say a company, they do a survey, they get a response, they decide to go to the next step. What would the next step be? I mean, what are the possibilities that a company can do to really help women? I mean, I'm saying a company just because I tend to work with companies rather than outside offices. So starting with that, what's the type of thing that they could do?
You can start just from a very transactional approach, like the very simplest level, because for small organisations, they might be thinking, oh, this isn't something we want to go near. But we're really talking about reasonable adjustments. Under the Act, reasonable adjustments. Could you make it more accessible to toilets for women? Could you find out whether some of your women need to be sitting closer to the air conditioning unit or the windows? Remember windows that open? Do they need better access to cold water to have a drink? Is there somewhere that a woman can go and lay down if she's not feeling very well? Or some women just get like totally fatigued and they just need to lay down for half an hour. Could you provide flexible working time? Could you look at uniforms or any other adjustments to work duties? So it can be really simple stuff that doesn't cost anything. We're not talking about massive cost here. But once you start saying these are some of the things we can be doing, then you start to engage with staff of, oh, okay, we could do this. But then there is this sort of wider thing of what do your staff actually need? Doing a survey. Can we do some awareness raising? Could we have some fact sheets that are just available? Could we have a bit on our intranet site that just points to resources that are available? Can we go that extra step of let's do some training for women? Because a lot of women come into menopause with very little knowledge about what to expect. They don't know the symptoms they're going to experience. They might have already started to experience things and think, I have no idea what is going on with me. So doing some training for women so that they can help themselves is absolutely brilliant. Do you need to do some training for line managers and managers? Just talking about the words. If a woman comes in and says, well, I'm not feeling so well, it's my perimenopause, and they go,
it's a complete mystery.
Or just feel embarrassed, but can we just upskill managers and line managers? So they go, okay, and how are you experiencing it? Because every woman's experience is different. They don't have to solve the problems. They can be listening and guiding women towards the right resources. Or if they have a man come in and goes, I'm exhausted because my wife is going through menopause. She's not sleeping well. I don't know what to do about it. I'm anxious. It's affecting my performance. How do you support that man?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very good point, actually, because, I mean, if I think for me, I mean, I didn't kill anyone and I didn't, well, I was lucky. I was incredibly active physically. So I did lots of sport and things like that. And I think that helped me. So I didn't have very strong symptoms. But when I think of my mum, she was difficult, shall we say. She was challenging in that period.
I understand. I get what you're saying.
And my dad because my dad was the sort of gentlest, calmest, non-confrontational person, and he just had no idea. He got really upset, he got really hurt, he didn't know what to do because everything he did was wrong. And luckily he was a farmer, so he could just go out in the fields and get some peace. But if you've got a guy coming into the office who's got a wife or a partner going through a dramatic menopause or a very stressful menopause, they must be really struggling emotionally because they're being attacked at home. They love their partner and they know that it's not really against them, but it's difficult to cope. So then you get the triggers in the office of, a problem at work or a deal or whatever the stresses are at work. I think that's brilliant that they actually try to show support to the men as well as to the women.
And we're not just talking about women in their 50s, which is this kind of image of the menopausal woman. Women undergoing hysterectomies, women going through treatment for cancer, transgender people.
Yeah,
we've got a whole range, and women going through early menopause, premature ovarian failure.
Yeah,
we're not just talking about women in a certain demographic. It's a whole wider selection. And of course, if you're the partner of a woman going through a hysterectomy or treatment for cancer, you're going through stress as well.
Yes.
So we're really talking about supporting the workforce.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just women, it's everybody. So what's the positive impact for employers when they're supporting menopause and wellness in general?
There's some big bonuses there. So, I can start with the, getting better performance. Because I don't think anybody goes to work to perform badly, but when you're not feeling well, you can't give your best. So better performance, less sickness absence, less presenteeism, people who are sitting there feeling like rubbish. Actually retention, because 25% of women consider leaving their jobs at menopause.
Really?
It's huge. And you've only got to talk to women about this and they say, oh yeah, I just couldn't do it anymore. And if you're replacing a woman who's earning about £25,000 a year, it costs £25,000 to replace that woman.
Oh, really?
Now, if you're talking about senior women who've got lots of experience, lots of knowledge, you've invested in them, they've invested in you, and they walk out the door and you've got no reason why they're going because you haven't made this a subject to talk about. They're melting away and you have got no understanding of why you're losing them. And it is such a benefit. Plus, of course, we could talk about corporate social responsibility. We can talk about your values and your branding. If you understand the women in your workforce and you're supporting them, this might have an effect on your customers and clients as well. You're understanding more about your client and customer base as well.
So it's showing values and it's all positive. I know you've been contributing to Reuters a lot on this. So does the fact that they've approached you for more information and also to deliver workshops for them, does it mean that awareness is growing globally among the media as well as in corporate?
I think so, because, I have a Hot Women Rock radio show, and every week...
I love the name of that.
Because we're hot women,
Exactly.
Let's embrace it. So I look at the media. I'm looking at the media every day for news reports, and you can see there's probably a dozen articles a day that are coming up about menopause issues.
Really?
Yeah. So it's really interesting how it's growing, and the fact that Forbes and Bloomberg's are doing work on this as well. So we've got businesses and the business media taking an interest in this. And in the article, because my relationship with Reuters started with, could I contribute to an article? And then it was, well, we want to run some awareness training. and I did a session with their staff in Australia and the Pacific area,
Oh,
and
really?
then in the afternoon did one with America. And there were over 100 staff on the call in the morning and over 200 on the call in the afternoon.
Really?
And
That's
I think they
huge.
were amazed at the response.
Yeah.
And actually, while we were delivering it, it wasn't just me, two of their staff were talking about, and it was their staff in the UK, which I think is significant,
Yeah.
two women talking about their experience of a difficult menopause and the
Yeah.
support they received from their line managers.
Yeah.
So they were really bringing it home that
Yeah.
we're going through this and it's not easy and you can support us. And we had so many questions. The chat box was lighting up with, is this menopause? What do I do about this? How do I get
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Because the conversation had opened up.
Yeah. That's incredible. So you're doing the radio show and you've also got a new book.
Yes, I never
Tell me more about both.
So, when you've got a mirror image, it's so difficult to know which way you're pointing. So the radio show, Hot Women Rock Radio, empowering women leaders at menopause, which is on talkradio.nyc. So it's a New York radio station, which is great because I'm there talking to America as well as the UK and inviting guests in. Really, don't think this is a radio show about hot flushes. We've talked about brain fog. We're going to be talking about HRT in a couple of weeks. This week, we're talking about menopause in the workplace. We've talked about relationships, domestic violence, autoimmune diseases, self-advocacy. It's a huge subject.
Yeah.
But in the book, Menopause Mind the Gap, which I put out in January, as I was publishing it, I was thinking, everybody's going through COVID. Are they really interested in this? And actually, there's been so much interest because there's been so much more of a spotlight on menopause and the issues around it. So I'm really glad I did publish it this year, even though it was a bit difficult. And I've made the first chapter available for free because it's got all the statistics about why this is a workplace issue. And I want organisations to understand that.
Brilliant. Well, I will definitely put the links to those on the page so that people can access them easily. So what's your view of the future? And also, what can we do ourselves just to improve our menopause experience?
Two huge questions.
All right, start with what can we do to improve our menopause experience first?
So the first thing, and this is my top tip, is to get educated on it. Don't sleepwalk into menopause, whether you're going into it naturally or because of a medical procedure. Find out something about it. Become an intelligent client of the medical system. It doesn't take a lot. Just understand what the hormones are doing, what the words are, what symptoms you might experience, so that if you start to get a bit of brain fog or you're feeling more anxious or you're not sleeping well, you're not just dismissing it. You're going, I can kind of see what's going on here. So it's the first tip really, is to get educated and to understand what your options are. If you don't want to take hormone replacement therapy, there's lots more you can do. There's adjustments to your nutrition, your exercise, the supplements you're taking, and my own field around mindset and using your brain to help you.
Yeah.
If you do want to take HRT, what are the benefits? What are the risks? What should you be asking when you go to your doctor? Really important questions. And that partly answers, the whole where the future lies. I think the future lies in educating younger women about menopause, particularly if, as they're suggesting, it will be taught as a subject in schools. So when they're talking about reproduction, they're also talking about the end of reproduction as well.
And
this is really important for young women because it's understanding that your fertility starts to drop when you're in your early 30s. And a lot of women don't realise that. They're not educated in it. And so they put off having children if they want to have children. And then suddenly it's, well, why didn't anybody tell me this was going to be a problem?
Yeah.
So I think this whole thing, this whole reproductive journey is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I need to tell my daughter that, because I wasn't aware. I mean, I knew sort of late 30s, 40s, obviously it naturally drops off, but I didn't realize it started earlier than that. So, right, I shall send her a message saying, get going, child. I want a grandchild. So, okay, any final piece of wisdom or key strategy that we should keep in mind to help us and to help menopause in the workplace in the future?
My key strategy is about thinking of this not just as a few years of transition where things are going on, because I've had women say to me, I think I can tough this out actually, I'll see it through. Think about this as setting the foundation for your next 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Really?
The decisions you make now, setting those foundations for whether you're going to be healthy in the future, your brain health, your body health, your bone health, your heart health. It starts again here. This is like the reset button where you get that chance to go, okay, how am I living? How do I want to be in the future? What is it that I can do now? So don't think of this as just a few years. Think about it as investing in your future and take action.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Pat. It's been an absolute pleasure having you back on the show. And I've learned so much. I know I'm through menopause anyhow, but it's so interesting to hear what people can do, what the support could be. And it really gives a much more positive view for the future. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Anna. It's just a real joy to be talking to you.
And thank you everyone for listening in and watching in, depending whether you're on video or audio. It's been a real pleasure having Pat. Do watch, listen to her radio show, and read her book. And she's done several other books in the past, so you've got a big choice. Okay, thanks very much. And I hope to see you all again next week. Bye.